Hi, Kin550. My name is Caitlin Grazer. Thank you so much for watching my final presentation of this CAP assignment. So I want to start off by explaining a little bit about the facility that I chose. I got really specific for this project. I chose Eureka High School. Eureka High School is a beautiful high school up here in Humboldt County. It was established in 1896. The main building that you're actually looking at in the picture right there was built in 1925. The gym in the weight room, the athletic facilities on campus were built in 47. And then the stadium where the football field, the softball field is, has not had any additions in there for the last 20 years. Eureka High School's got an enrollment of about 1,100 students right now. It varies between 1,000 and 1,200, which surprisingly makes it the biggest high school in our area. Softball athletes specifically, they're 26 to 50, 26 on our lower years, 50 on our higher. And the reason that I chose to get really specific with this project and use Eureka High as my facility is because I teach within the Eureka City Schools district, and I coach softball at Eureka High, so I wanted to take this project and implement it directly into my practice. So in looking at Eureka High School, I was able to analyze the risk management of the facility itself, and there are a few things that I realized. So up here, hazards that are present on the facility that are potential dangers to people are things that you can take a preventative stance against. You can remove all hazards. In the case up here, Chase vs. Shasta Lake Union, there was a softball game happening, and one of the participants injured themselves running into what I believe was a water heater on the field. So removing all of those hazards are a preventative measure that you can take, along with scheduling annual inspections. So that was just one bit of risk management. Along with analyzing the facility that you're at, you also have to think about your training program. Now, my high school softball team, we lift year-round, we condition outside whenever it's not raining, and we have a competitive season in between the months of February to the end of June. So you have to look through all potential risks within that training program, and one case that I came across was Wattenberger versus the Cincinnati Reds. A young gentleman trying out for the Reds actually injured his arm during the tryout, and what they found was that the waiver that he signed was invalid because he was a minor, even though he had signed this documentation saying that he would, not pursue any sort of legal action in the event of injury, that he assumed all of that risk because he was a minor. They found in this case right here that it does not count. You have to have a guardian sign. You cannot sign legal documentation as a minor. So because I work at a high school, I felt like that was really important for me to understand. There was preventative mitigation that I can take. Number one, make sure all athletes attain a physical. They fill out that PAR-Q. They have things signed off by physicians saying that they're okay to go. And then second of all, any sort of participation, parents or guardians need to have signed that waiver. They're all minors. It's invalid without that parent signature. And then the last bit of risk management that I felt it was important to analyze in this situation was risks involved in the actual sport. Now, this case right here actually states that any sort of injury that happens during the sport, I, as a coach, am not liable. So, for example, we see my third baseman here going to make a tag play against a girl that is sliding. Now, if she were to break her leg here or sustain some sort of injury, because it is in the nature of the sport, I'm not liable for that injury. It happens. It's unfortunate. It's awful, but it happens. Now, if she does break her leg and I do not do anything about it as a coach, if I do not have some sort of emergency plan for her care, if I tell her, rub some dirt on it and get back out there, that's when I can be held liable. So the injury itself, not liable. How I handle it, definitely liable. And that was something that we saw earlier in the course in some of the case studies that we did. So to mitigate that, this is what I would consider a therapeutic intervention. So after it happens, well, make sure that you have a emergency action plan. Make sure that it is clearly communicated to your staff, all assistant coaches, all volunteer coaches, any adults on campus that are a part of that, and make sure that that correct protocol that is established is followed to the T. One example that I really thought about, because this was really difficult for our small rural school to make happen, was making sure that we had AEDs located on our facility, and making sure that we all had access to them. Now, working in a public school, there are some issues prevalent to the employment laws. So I went first with hiring. There are a lot of cases, especially if you look at this one, Bertha Wynn versus Columbus, where a woman applied for a job as an AD and the person that was hired below her, the person that was hired was actually below her both in, what's the word I'm looking for? In experience and in credential. So that's something that as a coach, as a public school employee, I need to be aware of. We are protected under Title VII, Title IX, and our educational code. If a coach or if a teacher feels like they had been slighted or they feel like they had been discriminated against in the hiring process, first things first, make sure you understand the law, make sure you understand the ed code. Second thing, contact your union representatives. They're the ones that can help guide you through this process. Now, along with hiring comes employment law in regards to firing and removal from your position. Getting fired is often painful, awkward, and public. So I took a look at a few different cases, the first of which a teacher and coach was removed from his position but not evaluated. So teachers, credentialed people like I get evaluated on an annual basis, and that is one thing that actually helps safeguard me in my job. But coaches and teachers that, teachers that are performing extra duties as coaches, by this law right here, do not have to be evaluated. So that is something important to know. And then in this case right here, Hamilton versus Pulaski School District, a person removed from their post, once they are removed from their post, it has to be taken care of in a very procedural manner. And if your district does not follow a very specific process, you can actually be reinstated in your job. So once again, mitigation here. Step one, always make sure you approach your union or your school board throughout this process. You can ask for evaluations. Evaluations can be a very positive thing if you are meeting the needs of your district, or they could potentially backfire against you, something to keep in mind. And then once again, making sure that you keep in contact with your union representation. And then there's the last thing, equal pay. There have been many people fighting for equal pay, and I know it gets really sticky, especially when you reach higher level collegiate athletics, where there are revenue sports that have higher demands as opposed to their counterparts. But in my school district specifically, I am paid equally to my counterpart, so I make the same salary as the head baseball coach. And we are required by law to have that equal opportunity in pay. So if you see that your district or your facility is not providing equal pay and it is actually on a discriminatory basis, once again, contact your union. You can seek negotiations for a salary scale, and you can renegotiate contracts, especially if it's something that is not adhering to federal law. So applying sport law, I'm really glad I chose to focus this around Eureka High School, because I've been able to assess the risks associated with being a head coach of an newer, rejuvenated program. It's helped me kind of evaluate where I need to grow and where I need to communicate with my superiors to make sure that we handle our business as professionally as possible. And this class specifically has helped me understand my rights as a coach. I do aspire at the end of this program to explore my options teaching and coaching at the next level. And I think this will help me kind of see the big picture and be able to understand the process with greater depth of knowledge. And then if I end up staying in the public school systems and ever become an athletic director, this has been incredibly valuable because I will know so much more ahead of time than I would have without this class. So faith integration. I am a proponent of, I'm a supporter of keeping church and state very separate. So I believe that there are very few situations where I could come into any sort of legal dispute due to my faith. I would always tend to concede toward the law. But with that said, there were 3 pieces of scripture here that I feel like could help me either as a coach or an athletic director in working with employees, working with my superiors, just working in this sort of facility. So the first one, Romans right here. We who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good to build him up. Deuteronomy right here. Do not take advantage of a hired worker who is poor and needy, whether that worker is a fellow Israelite or a foreigner residing in one of your towns. And then Colossians here, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. I think that it's important to lean back on scripture and to remember why you are doing something. We're all living out our purpose through our work, and that should be what we use to guide our everyday steps and decisions in how we approach our practice and how we approach our employers and employees. And then lastly, here are my references. I appreciate you guys for sticking through this presentation with me. I've had a great time learning in this class. Many blessings to all of you.